We're live, baby.
Final piece.
I mean, Instagram will be here shortly. We'll be up there, but we are on YouTube, Facebook fam. How y'all doing? YouTube fam, how you doing? I didn't have anything that begins with Y that is similar to family, so we'll figure that out. But above average black man, we're excited. Dev's gonna be on set soon, setting this up on IG. Can you hit that like? Because I always feel like I look dark when we don't have it. I'm proud of it though.
You ain't getting no light.
Nothing. I was just trying to say, like, I'm proud of it, but yeah, brighten me up a little bit. Brighten me up just a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Now look at that. Does that look better?
You didn't get any lighter. Room just got lighter.
I feel like I think a little bit lighter. To those that are looking at us on camera right now.
I don't think your complexion changed because the lighting changed.
To people
So
watching,
it
did. It did. It was like, wow, that's a dark brother. And then that light came on. I was like, wow, it is. I'm glad you said that. That's probably a great segue to what we're going to talk about today. Black men.
Fight the power.
And our view here in America.
Yeah, man.
I feel like I had a good discussion or a brief discussion with
I'm good.
my lady about that one. You can move it over a little bit.
This way?
Yeah. Too much. Just boy.
There you go.
There we go. Perfecto.
I have to figure out how to get that fellow back.
Perfecto. Oh man. I'm excited tonight. I'm excited. I'm really trying to envision where this conversation is going to go.
With that, welcome to the episode of Above Average Black Men. You're truly Professor Senior.
Chris Jr., as always, here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community.
Devin Pender here to say like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, interact with us. We're on all platforms, y'all.
Wow. For a second, I was like, Dev, you got the smooth baby face shave going on, but
You left the shadow.
Can't get rid of the shadow.
You left the shadow. Yeah, you get closer.
Oh man.
You left the shadow. But tonight's topic, what is it like being black in America, as a black male in America today? It's our topic, man.
Yeah, and I think that's a great topic to talk about because I mean I've thought about this from many different angles. You know, the idea of what it's like to be a black man in America, and one conversation that I had a little bit earlier was just I think as a black man there is a lot of expectations from us, as well as there's a lot of pressure from outside groups and other people for us to look a certain way or be perceived a certain way. Like, for instance, like the example that I used, I was like, man, it's crazy to me to think that there's expectations from black men, of black men from women, and how or the way that we should or should not be. There's expectations from white people. They may not say it, but we know it when they want us to potentially be one of the good ones or be a certain way. And then even from ourselves in the community, like with black men, like I think there is also an expectation of how we expect to perceive each other. And I don't think it's necessarily right each time. Like even just kind of some of the examples that I use, let's say with black men and how we receive or look at each other, perceive each other. Just I know for growing up, it's still probably like that now. It's like, man, how many girls you get? Is that really kind of defines you as a man, or even just a black man, even in our community? Or like how you dress? Like, man, you got the latest sneakers. Do you wear this particular brand? You know, if you were coming up again in my age, like if you see somebody that's well dressed, with a suit or a tie on, in some cases they may call you a sellout. You know what I mean? Because you aren't necessarily hip to what we say is the culture. And I think same applies outside races or even across genders. Like it's this expectations on what we should be or what we should look like. And I don't think that we do a good enough job to kind of define what that looks like within our own community. I think it's really difficult to be a black man in America. Like you always hear how difficult it is to be everything else, but I don't feel like anybody really talks about it from a black man's perspective, like some of the issues and things that we have to encounter and go against nonstop, nonstop. So, Dad, what do you think? I guess, Devin, what is your perspective or take before we start to have some of this spirited back and forth here?
I would say a lot of the same. I'll even add a different wrinkle. Um, Sometimes from even our own women, you hear, "What, you don't have any kids?" And when you hear that, it's like they assume you can't, you don't know how to talk to women or something like that, or you can't get girls, and that's like another wrinkle that I hear. Um, it's very, I think it's very interesting and pretty unfair how we can get even judged by our own race, essentially.
And it almost feels like who's in our corner? Like who's in the black man's corner to defend? Not even, I don't want to say defend because we can certainly defend ourselves, but it certainly feels at times like there's nobody that's out there like kind of saying like good job, black man. You hear, and again, this is not a knock in any type of way, but you hear black girl magic and how women stick together. There's all these things. You start to hear like I would say some positive things about black men now, but it's like a very small pocket of it. So I don't know. It's very difficult from all types of angles to be a black man in America at this moment, because even we're just talking about the expectations of it. We didn't even get into the racism and just the straight blatant just fear of us on so many levels too. Because I did mention kind of the three different ways in which we kind of receive these expectations from people, whether that's from black men in our own groups, from women just in general, or just kind of white people in different races. But certainly, like, there's a fear of us. And I think, like, that certainly is something that's portrayed often, often. So it's hard. It's hard to even, like, talk about it and just, like, man, go through all of these different ways that people kind of, I don't want to say look down, but like it's like you definitely feel like it's tough for us. And then I'm interested to hear kind of your take or perspective in regards to, like, do you feel or get the sense of it kind of being tough at all? Like, do you think that it is tough? Has it gotten tougher? Has it gotten easier? Like, what's your perspective or take on it? I personally think that it's gotten tougher for us.
It's an interesting question. I think, first of all, as one who was born in the 60s, so I in elementary school in the 60s, I had a chance to see Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis, the videos, black and white videos. So I kind of had a front row seat to a lot of civil rights stuff that was going on, the dogs sitting at the counters and things of that nature. I saw a lot of this stuff. So I want to start there. The assassination of JFK, Martin Luther King, the train actually, both trains actually went through North Philadelphia. So I remember my grandmother taking me so we could see the train, go through. But still the memories of a country in turmoil growing up, and divided over race.
Yes.
It wasn't divided over war. It wasn't divided over, the economy or economics. It was simply divided by race. And so, and as you get older, you begin to realize that it's more people than you think. And it's always based on education. Like even today, they try to make you think it's always the uneducated people. But no, there's some people out there who are very calculating, who are very well educated. And then you see the shift. If I think about the 70s, where you did have a lot of African American male teachers. You saw the shift. You have, man. And then you see the shift when you by the 80s when they started to disappear.
Yeah.
And as they started to disappear, I think there is a disconnect because not all, but most people outside our race don't understand the culture. They don't try to understand the culture. So because we don't fit into their culture neatly, it creates, a chasm, another realm. And I'm going somewhere with this. And then by the time you get out in the real world, that's when you really encounter racism. Because now you're outside your neighborhood, because simply most people stay in a neighborhood in high school. And so now you really encounter it. And that kind of, to me, set the temple for the rest of your life. For me, I just it's crazy because to me, I feel like it's increasingly getting harder instead of easier.
Yeah, I agree.
For a while, you kind of get duped into it because you think, because they show you images of slavery and all hard stuff, and you don't experience the actual civil rights side. I wasn't there, and so they throw a lot of stuff out there. They pander to you and they show you these things. Oh man, it's getting better, and then your mind is getting better. But the reality was, it was just a mirage.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a mirage because now we're sitting back now, and I'll say it. We got a bunch of folk about to vote for a president that openly does not like minorities. Is openly pushing for he wants to do with the democratic system. They're already dealing with voters' rights, which impact us, because for as much as you guys always talk about voting, so imagine they just take some of us and wipers off the rolls. They give us less. Lynching is still in the books in some states.
Some downtowns is still a thing too.
But some books have never taken lynching off the. Some states have never taken lynching off the books. So it's crazy. And I'm seeing things now that I thought I would never see. And that's on both sides. So I think that us versus other ethnicity groups is one realm that we deal with, because you got to be better. There was a time there when I graduated high school back in '79, '80s. Everybody had to have a minority, so you got in, because everybody wanted to have minorities because they wanted to get the federal money. Well, now we're going back the other way, which you don't have to have them now. The emphasis is not there anymore. So I think that kind of made a step back. I think, and I'm not saying this in a competition way, with the emergence of females in the workplace. For those who don't want to deal with the brothers, they'll hire a female.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to deal with the brothers. And I'm not saying the female's not qualified, because more often than not she is. But that's another category. Then you go look at it as trying to be a dad. Especially if you're trying to raise boys in this climate.
Sure.
How do you strike the balance between, good cop, bad cop? How do you strike the balance when you don't want your kids to grow up racist and not liking white people, but you have to make them aware of something that's out there, that's very real. And then if you look at it from the religious standpoint, church is one of the most segregated places in America, even on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then it was funny because I was watching Pastor Waller there, a video tape, and he kind of mentioned the same thing. And some churches are just as bad as, and I'm not going to say KKK, but they hold those same racist stereotypes as well. So if you're not careful, there's not a places for us for lack of a better term, to escape it. And then you're a father, you come home and you still got to deal with being a father and a husband. So I think, yes. Is it worse physically, the things that we endure, like lunch counter sit-ins and abuse? No. But I think there's a lot of subtle messages out there.
Yes.
That keeps us understanding. Even in sports, I was talking to someone about it today. It's like somebody put something out that Jalen Hurts has won more football games in this short period of time than any other quarterback in Philadelphia history. Nick Foles, he doubled up Nick Foles in that same short period of time. I think he had 34, Nick Foles had 16. But, he's a black quarterback. Now all of a sudden he can't read defenses. See, when he was tearing the league up last year, that wasn't the question. He had a bad year. If you're a white or Caucasian quarterback, there's so many other things. Like, you never hear him say about Baker Mayfield. As bad as he was until this year, you never heard people say about him. No matter how terrible he was. There's some quarterbacks that are terrible, and you never hear them say that. But when it comes to minority quarterback, now he can't read defenses. He can't process fast enough. And this stuff you heard way back in the day when they didn't want blacks to be quarterbacks. So that's what I mean. I think it's gotten harder.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's like kind of what kind of resonated with me while you were saying those things is just, I don't even feel like we hear black men talked about in a positive light. Like, I rarely, if ever, hear black men. It's like, oh, we don't protect. We not being the fathers or stepping up when we need to be. Oh, you're not making enough money.
Well, I'm gonna get in trouble when I say this. Because Devin touched on this, but a lot of this is handled within our race.
Yeah, it is.
Because a lot of it I've heard women who look like us say all men. I've heard women who look like us say men. And even though the person, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I asked the kids in high school one of my questions last week was, how do you view the world? And a lot of them saying it's inherently evil. And so I said, okay, well, let me ask you a question. What are you basing that on? But in reality, it's not more evil people than nice people. The evil people just get the credit, and they stick out more. But and it's the same thing. There's a few men who fall into that category that everybody points to. So if somebody does not look like us, like for instance, they're not going to go to a neighborhood where nobody smokes and say, black people smoke a lot. No, they're going to go to a neighborhood and people don't understand the polling process. Well, we smoke a lot, and then they'll say 85% of the people surveyed. You're not thinking they just did this small area. So they make you believe that that's 85% African American. It's not. I think part of it is because we always talk about it is I think black men as a whole, we have to get better at advertising ourselves.
Yes.
We got to get better at saying, not patting ourselves on the back, but we got to get better at saying, I am, the opposite of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not atypical, but there are a lot of friends who are like me, who raise their kids. Their kids are doing well. However, when you get into certain arenas, I'm atypical. You got a lot of friends that don't have kids. You got a lot of friends that don't have kids. Yeah. But so these are the things.
Or they married and got kids.
Well, I just kind of stuck it to the first part because
I'm just saying
that's one of the things they always. It's like in fatherhood. There's a lot of the stats in fatherhood are dismal, but there's just so many white dads out there, black dads who are missing in action in other ways. They could be in a house interacting with their kids. So there's just so many things that go into this. But inherently, back to our question, it's getting worse. You talk about for every aspect. You're talking about voting rights. Voting rights controls all the positive, anything that can help us negate this. The fact they haven't taken some of this stuff off the books that could set us back another 20 years. Perfect example. Now they took away, so minorities used to kind of at least have a level playing field of getting into some of these upper schools like Penn and Harvard and all. They took that away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just even thinking it's very tough to be a black man or a black boy trying to grow up in America when it's just like you feel like everything and everybody, black young man, everything seems to be stacked against you. You almost get it at every level.
Well, I don't look at it as, and I think that's why we have to learn to view it differently. When I was younger, I probably would have said what you said, but I think as I get older, I just see it as a hurdle.
I mean, I'm just from a kid. I'm not going to think that.
Well, that's what I just said when I was younger. But as you mature, you see it, and that's what we got to teach our kids. If you teach people that everything is stacked against you, they quit. Especially this day and age, they quit. They don't want to give up. These folk ain't fighting like they used to fight.
But it's actually kind of crazy. Like just just sparked something in me. What you're saying that it's like, man, like now think about the impact that has on a child when that's the perspective that you get your whole life. You know what I mean? That you're not going to be doing this. You're not going to be able to do that. Or if by this age, you can't read. You're going to prison. Like it's just all these different things.
No, but see, that's
that they kind of.
But this was the
put upon you.
This is where the black father or the black educator has to step up and say,
we ain't got enough black educators.
I don't care if it's just one. They got to step up and say. They got to say that. They got to be. They got to step up and say, look, hey, the stats you hear and everything is not 100% accurate because I can poll a specific targeted population and get the numbers I want because I know what's happening to that population. So I think this, even as uncles and all the other roles we play, we got to step up to fill the gap because we're waiting for someone else to do it who, frankly, they don't care because it's another form of capitalism. They make money. They're making money. They got to change the way the system is unfolding for us.
The numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell a story. You can't say just discredit them all in general. Like when they say that there's a certain population of kids that are growing up without parents, like that's a real thing, or without a dad.
No, but it's not black. It's not a black thing. That's the point. If you go into a black neighborhood, you're going to say it's 98% African American. If you survey the whole world, that number changes.
They have the numbers out there for white and black.
No. When you hear the numbers presented, you've never heard somebody tell you when they tell you the number, they make sure they point to the African American community. Much times I spent in fatherhood, it was always pointed towards the African American community. They never said that this is a problem that some people do, but most people, they never say it's a father problem. It's across all cultures. They just talk about how the black community.
I think just in regards to the numbers, like, it certainly happens in every community, but because we make up a smaller percentage of the population, it seems a little bit more prevalent.
But we don't make up. See, that's
we do.
No, we do make
up a smaller percentage of the population.
Our population is growing. Well, the Spanish is past this, but it just, I mean, that's
comparable to any other race.
Yeah, the white race is losing ground big time. The pure white is losing race big time. Minorities are catching up.
I was about to call you stat baby from.
But that's what they worried about. That's what they worried about.
They are.
Back to what I said. I can make a number say what I wanted to say, and that's what we got to be careful of. If I go into an all black community and I survey all black people and 2 white people, it's going to be 98% African American. So the number is accurate, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
I mean,
it doesn't tell the whole. And most people, when you writing grants to get money, they make the numbers fit
what you needed to fit. Yeah.
They make it serve their needs. So my point is, we have to be careful when we just take those numbers and run with them and not fully pay attention to it.
It's still a problem.
Yeah, it's still a problem, but how you deal with the problem determines on how big the problem is. For instance, let's go back. If they really, if somebody came to me and said that 98% of African Americans are undereducated, well, why don't you put money after them? Why aren't you improving schools?
Because it's more money, it's profit off putting them in prison.
But that's why.
That's why.
But your prison's overcrowded.
So they're building more.
They're not building them. That's the problem. Not building them fast. That's the problem. You can never. If you incarcerate people at a higher rate than you educate them, you're never going to build enough prisons quick enough. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't.
That's why we see people getting put back on the streets and then more crime happening and they put them right back in there.
That's the issue because we turn
a cycle of nonsense.
But that's the issue because we allow it. We allow politicians to get away with it. And as black men, I told you about the special I watch, and I hear all these black men when the promises are broken to black men. No, it's a black community. It's just not about just the black, black men need to take the role, but it impacts our entire community. And the problem is, if I get a bunch of guys just thinking about themselves or a bunch of ladies thinking of what we see now, you see the impact of it.
Mm-hmm.
You see the impact of it. So, or if I got people we get out there and I get in front of people that don't look like me and I start saying all this bad stuff, oh, black women ain't this, but that's the stuff that gets the media attention. They're not going to come, talk to you when you saying positive stuff. So that's what I'm saying. That's why we got to be careful for people who just hang their head on numbers.
I would say the media and even social media have done a great job of pitting us against each other.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would also say a lot of it we've done to ourselves.
Well, yeah, to a certain extent, I would agree with that.
I mean, think about it.
We make poor choices.
A lot of poor choices. Think about there's people not using protection. There's people wearing ski masks for no reason all across. Like that stuff is.
I am not.
I'm
not dismissing or negating any of that. I think you're 150% accurate. I do. And has it helped our image? No. However, and this is my point, you never hear somebody say all white people, but it's always all black people. When you see mass, no, I'm talking about in any.
I mean, we do.
When you see, no, I'm saying, no, hear what I'm saying.
We do.
No, the media don't say that. What your voice don't mean anything because nobody hear you. What we say in the barbershop, nobody's hearing that. But when that kid goes to school and he's exposed to the media, he's hearing those things. That's the majority of the people. They're not saying it's just one dude who went off, like they say for people who don't look like us. So the narrative they paint, it don't matter what we say in the barbershop because we ain't saying it to our kids. But we got a bunch of grown men talking to each other. They're not sharing it with people who need to hear it.
The media example, who is that controlled by? Who is that for? Of course, they make us look a certain way. They make us look a certain way.
But you backing up what I said. We start spouting out numbers and all this stuff. They make the numbers disproportionate because how they put it out there.
It's not a number. It's an image.
No, but they use numbers. They just don't use images. They use numbers too. It's the perfect example. When somebody says, "Oh, this guy's the MVP because he hit 60% of the 3-pointers," I want to see how many hit when the game was on the line.
Why?
I'm just saying though, because that tells me something about the dude. If the dude knocking him down when it don't matter, then he's 0 for 12 in the playoffs. Every time the playoffs come around, it do tell you about it. It tells you a lot about a player.
James Harden's still gonna be a Hall of Famer.
But he's gonna be a Hall of Famer because he happens to be a bunch. He can take a whole bunch of shots.
Charles Barkley's still gonna be a Hall of Famer.
But no, you can't put Charles in it. Because Charles
won championships.
I didn't say championships, but he performed in big moments. He didn't shrink in big moments. He put up big numbers in big moments.
How can you say that
his team wasn't good? Well, you can't have big numbers in your team lose. That happens all the time.
I know, but ain't nobody going back and praising LeBron James for having a triple-double.
I didn't say praising. What I said,
I ain't win an MVP for that. It's forgotten.
You're taking it somewhere that's not what I said. I was talking about, you use Charles Barkley, which is a bad example because he performed. I was talking about a guy like Harden. If you never perform in a big moment, but you got these great stats during the season, that says something about your career.
What is that?
That says something about your career.
So a great player.
You're not a great player. You're not a great player. You're a very good player, but if you're not performing the key moments for your team, that's not a great player. That's the problem. Now we pay everybody great. That's the same way.
Because not everybody's gonna be built like Michael Jordan.
I didn't say you gotta be Michael Jordan, but if you averaging 40 points a game and every year you get to the playoff, you score 12, that ain't Michael Jordan. That's pedestrian by anybody's standard.
Go down the line, it's a bunch of players that's like.
That's my point. That's my point.
And we still don't like.
You backing up what I'm saying,
but they're still great.
No, they're not great. You're great. You're great.
Let's make it back about the
No,
percentage.
but that's my point. But that's my point. How you can skew numbers. How you can sit there and say, because if I'm not counting the playoffs, yeah, that's one thing. But if I'm looking at somebody's whole body of work,
and then
that number changes.
I mean, we'll see that he shot like maybe 50% for his career.
But
now you're getting technical about playoffs.
No, I'm not. I'm making a point. That's not technical. That's part of his career. What I'm talking about, when you got people's lives in the balance, that little bit matters. That when you, especially in the climate we live now, where it's based on fear, where it make people fear. Those numbers, those little bit of things, that little technical things you're talking about matters, because it takes whole communities and turns into hate.
He's not even talking about. I think the point wasn't even about the numbers. It's the images that we see that's put out there. For instance, like when Trayvon Martin got murdered or killed, and they wanted to put him in a hoodie, when instead you can put other pictures out there, images where he wanted to be like an astronaut or a pilot. And
but one of the reasons
images.
But it wasn't the images alone, because what did George Zimmerman said? Because what he saw and what statistics say is he's more likely to be a criminal. I have Black people tell that to me. So it's not, you can't separate the images from the numbers, because those two things together are very dangerous. If I keep peppering Devin with this is this, when I was in college in my class, psychology class, I never forget. Teacher saw this guy's coming, the guy's crazy, he's a little off, he's okay, he's on medication. Dude shows up, knocks over this, everybody scatters. Wasn't nothing wrong with dude. You just plant that seed enough in people, then you throw a number with it, full go crazy. Nobody researched to see how valid it is.
So do you think these people that are kind of racist in certain areas, that they're like just adding numbers and images together, like, well, I saw this somewhere that 50% of people, they barely can read or write. No, I'm just saying from my experience, when I was in college and did a very similar psychological project, it was based off of the images that they saw, and I just know what I saw on TV. Or they're not saying I saw, 60% of the things that I saw on TV said that.
Let me explain to you.
It was just an image that they saw.
Group. Look at politics. Trump is very good at that, making up numbers, throwing stuff out there, because people hear the numbers and they see the pictures. Some people just, because this is a different generation, but politicians are very good at throwing out numbers and pictures and putting them together, because when they do that, it hits the educated people.
You don't
need a greater mass of people. No, you don't need the numbers.
No, I'm just saying, for people who aren't. So how much a percentage are you saying is like at this educated level where they need the numbers?
I can tell you why.
Versus the people who can just, you can really get over off of what they see.
No, because there's people out here who don't want to admit that they're racist, don't want to admit they're biased, who will look at a picture and they're okay, don't tell the whole story. But you put a number with it, I don't care if the number is wrong. That's why they use numbers, because numbers impress people. In any business, that's why they use numbers, because numbers impress people.
It's a lot more red people who don't need them numbers, and you can see them and hear them when they talk that.
But little people who make decisions use numbers. I'm not talking about Joe Blow, who's a racist who lives around the corner.
But that's how he decides how he's going to be like this.
But he's not the one. The problem is when he gets the upper middle class educated people, whoever wins that class wins the election. And I'm just using that as an example, because that's the people persuaded by numbers. That's the people. That's like somebody look, and every year they crack me up, because they say we polled African Americans, and every year I'm 62. I've never heard any of my friends, I know got polled. Never. So I don't know where they polled at. Nobody. I don't even know anybody who knows somebody who got polled. But they do this poll, and they throw the numbers out there. And most of the time, the poll, when it comes out, community don't even hash out when the actual election happens. Why? Because if I throw a number out there and I put some crazy pictures up there, I ain't gonna vote. My votes don't matter. Why? 30% of the people, and the people are the first ones to throw it back at you.
I think probably taking it away from the focus of news and still just talking about the imagery of it. You see it in TV shows like Family Guy or cartoons where they make these racist jokes. Like you see it on just a lot of shows where it's these kind of racist, stereotypical jokes about Black people. What does the numbers have to do with the image?
Because you're talking about one minute thing, but that's the reason why they try to.
It's not minute.
It is. You talking about
it's pretty prevalent.
You talk about everybody ain't sitting here watching cartoons.
That's an example.
So, but I'm just saying. So that's it. But that's just one round. Again, what did they say about music? Yeah, it was the images and the sounds,
the videos,
and then they throw the dollar sounds out there. I'm gonna be rich. I'm gonna be rich. So I hear what you're saying, but they figure out, people who can know how to control people figure out what target population, what demographic to work and how to work it, and that's what they do. Yeah, and it's not just and pictures work, but there's a lot of people who get moved by numbers. There's a lot of people in this country who get. That's why people get conned because somebody throw a number out there. Oh yeah, you're gonna make all this money, and they hit a number, and sometimes those numbers override your rationale. So numbers, I mean, you can't just dismiss them. And what I'm saying is there's a balance and you have to be careful because they use numbers to manipulate you too. It's just like, just like we got finished talking about. You convince a neighborhood of people that 1 out of 3 of y'all going to jail. So when 1 out of 3 start going to jail, well, nobody's surprised. Even if it's trumped up charges, whatever, nobody's surprised because we knew that.
But do you hear?
Didn't know it. You
do
knew
they talk on the media like that? Do they say that on media? Like, I think.
Yeah, your mom watches the media. I don't. Your mom watches media all the time. They always use the numbers.
And I don't ever feel like I don't see them say like, "Hey, black people are doing the percentage of black people who are committing murders."
See, no. Oh, I wouldn't mean that you watching because they don't say
they don't never that direct.
You ain't watching politics, then, bro. Because in politics, they always talk about how the disproportionate number of African Americans who commit crimes. They don't talk about the ones who are falsely charged.
Just talking about politics
because how do you get on the news, Chris? They get on the news through politics. That's how they get on the news through politics.
I'm talking about like your daily, regular news.
But you're talking about people who swing. You're talking about a group of people.
And not everybody's watching or cares about politics.
But people who make decisions are. People who make policy are. People who make laws are.
I mean,
that's the people you should worry about.
That's why we down the hole that we in now because people not paying attention.
But that's why. No, that's not true. People who make policy. See, I'm not talking about Joe Brown live around the corner. I'm talking about the people who actually go out there and vote in every election. I'm talking about politicians who grew up with a mindset that this is what black men look like. This is what black people do. Who push that agenda out there. Stuff we're fighting against right now. I'm talking about those guys. If you want to go to sports, the same guys who said blacks couldn't play, couldn't be point guards because they weren't smart enough, or they couldn't be quarterbacks, they weren't smart enough. Somebody planted that seed, a group of people ran with it. And the group of people ran with it. When Allen Iverson showed up with the automatically he was a thug, but he had cornrows and stuff in his hair. He wasn't anybody. No, people even take away from his basketball prowess because of that. And when you hear, and the media does talk about that. I mean, not everybody, but politicians, the people who like I said, who make the rules, who set up the legislation and stuff like that, they always throwing numbers out there.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you in both parties, that's why at politics it drives me crazy because you got to fact check everything they say.
Yeah, I mean
almost in real time. Well, that's not an accurate number because that's how they know how they lie because they know how powerful numbers are.
Yeah, and again, I'm thinking about it from the masses standpoint here, like. Yeah, there's probably like a class of people who really kind of follow or look at those things. But like the majority of the United States, we would say is probably a little bit more rural than actually urban.
But you can't say
these TVs, they don't care about.
But the majority never rules. The majority never rules. The people who actually vote are the ones who rule. The people who make policy are the ones who rule. It's the people. It's not the majority. It's the people who set precedent for this stuff. They make the rules. If the majority of people voted, we wouldn't have the same idiots we have in office. No, the majority and who actually. Why wouldn't it be true? You hear all these people complain and say, "Look,"
because it's a lot of crazy.
No, it's not.
Reds out here.
No, but if
think about Pennsylvania, I think perfect example. Everybody thinks that Philadelphia, because that's here, that Pennsylvania is this liberal state, but the rest of this,
but if you
traveling out throughout the state, we know what it looks like.
But if you got enough people, politics would change because people would start supporting other people instead of the regular politicians. And I don't want to be on this long. You would. If the majority of people voted, the country would be different because that's why they don't worry about dealing with the majority. That's why all of a sudden the black vote is a big deal now because it was so close before. And what they figured out was if all people who voted who did not voted either way, one would have been a landslide and the other person would have won. That's just how close it was. But they never focus on them. But I want the ones who vote. I don't care about Joe Brown in the barbershop who sit there talking never vote. I ain't worried about him. I'm worried the guy's going to go down to the poll and cast his vote. So I got to speak his language. I'm worried about the guy who's going to put $1 million into my campaign, not the guy who's going to stick $5 in the bucket. So it does matter. I wish the majority would, but it's not. Like Trump didn't win when he won. He didn't win the popular vote. He won the legislative side of it. He didn't win the popular vote.
College. Yep.
So it's and it should be you think it would be the majority of people had to say, but that's not how it's set out. And it goes back to what I'm saying about why it's difficult being a black man because, and to your point, some of it we have done ourselves. We haven't. We don't do our homework. We don't pay attention. We don't vote. We sell elections, man. We don't get our own candidates. You know, we don't hold our local politicians accountable, all that stuff, man. You know, some of us not fathering our kids, man. We got these kids going buck wild, man. Yeah, we got our kids. So there is some responsibility too, but also there is a system that makes it extremely difficult for us to be who we truly are. It's a struggle. You know, I can't raise, I can talk, and just like we just got finished having this discussion, we can have this all day long. But if I had to put a white person or a white woman, like, yo, I can't do that. I mean, because now, you know, because now I'm intimidated.
And that's where, again, I think, I don't think maybe numbers removed from that. Like, it is just this perception that they have of us when they see us. Like, I think, to just removing maybe even the social media thing, like it's just probably things that they've learned maybe even from growing up or around people. Like you always hear like from some black women like their mom had a certain situation and instilled these things in them, and it's just kind of something that was a learned behavior.
Now their mom didn't use a number, but their mom made it seem like it was all men, most men. So she didn't say a number, but basically she was, this is majority of men. So you can take majority and put a higher percentage, however you want to do it, but that's how you shape somebody's perception. You just bombard it with information. Yeah, marketing people do it all the time. And when it comes to black men, we don't understand it. And this is why, again, I want to say again, I agree with Devin because we don't understand it. You know, we just, like I said, when I watched the show, and I'm not going to get into MSNBC, I watched the show and they were talking about it. And I'm listening to these black men talking about how, and I didn't watch the whole thing. So if you did, and I missed something, I apologize, how they felt like the promise got broken to them. What about your community? Our schools are dilapidated. Our kids are being undereducated. It's easier for our kids to get locked up than it is to go to college. And you talking about a promise somebody broke to you? It's our community, and we have to start as black men. We got to start thinking community minded. We got to stop thinking about my little house, my little thing. No, we got to start thinking community, because the reason why I do what I do is because I want y'all to get married. But if I ain't doing what I'm doing, that ain't help get people ready for it. I think I do what I do because you have to think community minded, or our numbers are going to keep going lower and lower and lower. People traditionally care. It gets lower and lower and lower. So you have to. I'm in a shelter, man. And it's a shame because you're in the shelter with all these people, grown people from different walks of life, man. And they show up, drugs. They're trying to fight back from drugs. And I'm not talking about 20-year-olds. I'm talking people 50, 40, 50, 60 years old who somewhere along the line made that decision. So what I'm saying is, as black men, we do need to do a better job. But it is, and Gary's on here, I'm sure he'll agree, it's getting tougher and tougher. And I think a lot of it is systematic. I do want to say that. And we do have a say in some of what we do. But we got to break the cycle. At some point, we got to break the cycle and just stop accepting what it is.
So I have a question for the both of y'all. What do you guys think the black man's image is in today's world currently?
I think it is skewed, and it's like very
skewed. But what do you think that is?
What do I think it is?
Yeah.
Like again, I feel like what do I think it is personally?
Yeah.
Or what it should be.
Both. Why not?
Because what I think it is, again, I feel like it's skewed and it's very much all over the place. Like I think, as I mentioned probably at the top of this show, like you have a certain population of people that look at us as being dangerous, toxic, just for being a man. You get we're not educated, we don't work hard. Like I feel like you hear rumblings of a lot of these things. What I personally think it should be is like just from the men that I know, like certainly pillars of strength, like people that are heavily involved in their community, mentors, role models. Like I do see, again, in my circle, a lot of positive black men doing extraordinary things. And I think even beyond my circle, just in my microcosm of things that I see online, I probably purposely search for and look for those things because I know that there is this kind of negative stigma or whatever connotation of us. And like,
but this proves my point. Yeah. When you were talking about the statistics before, I know a lot more people who are doing a lot good things than doing bad things. I know a lot of people who take care of their kids, who are paying their bills on time, who are married, who have a nice middle class. I know a lot of people, but statistics will make you believe that like we're an anomaly, that we're not average. that they will. And what I see, I think the way we're dressed right now is how they see most of us. The hoodies, the jeans, or sweatpants, or sneakers. I think that's how they see most of us. And hence, you hear all the time, "Oh, you clean up nice." "Oh, you look good in the suit." Because they're surprised, they're shocked. So I think that is the image they see us in, and they're comfortable with it because it justifies their bigotry, it justifies their hate, because they can point to people dressed like us doing bad things. So I think that's the image they see. And I don't care. You may think because you live in a different neighborhood or whatever, but that's what they see. It's like when I go to do PD days and stuff, I purposely don't get dressed up. And I can tell the interaction with people that I got to pull out the master's degree card. I know they ain't doing that to white people. White people show up with boat shoes on and all kind. Nobody questions their credentials, but nobody questions it. So that's, I think, when they see that, that's the expectation. Now, to Chris's point, they should see the other things, because the world we live in, there's enough evidence, for lack of a better term. There's enough cases you can see people doing positive things. However, it's like when I do the workshop on elevating voices of students of color. And one of the questions I ask is, how many you learned about African Americans from the media, from all these different things? That's most of them in the class.
Yeah.
They never met anybody, so they're perpetuating the stereotypes. Why? Because somebody showed them pictures and gave them numbers. So, 80% of people, so 8 out of 10 of them, and so they do that kind of math. So the point I'm making is, it's getting worse, and we have contributed to it, but some of it's on them. Because I can't control somebody's bias when I walk into a room, because they're gonna look at me and automatically assume, like the other day I was talking to somebody and they were asking me a question. They said, "Yeah, man, college and all that stuff." And his college prices are going through the thing. And then we start talking about McKinsey, and then we start talking about the tuition. And a white person goes, "Well, nobody can afford that." How you know? How do you make that assumption? No, because you can. Or just like college, I have three college graduates. And Caucasian people do it. It's not a big deal. But now for us, they rather have a parade. The fact that we do this show is so, and I'm proud of it. But it shouldn't be that way, that a father and his 2 sons can't have a project together or just have a spirit discussion like we had. That's a problem when you live in a society, and that's abnormal.
Yeah, and again, I think numbers aside, like even just using my example of like just kind of how the view is distorted for us from women, from
Gary agrees.
Yeah, if the view is distorted from women, is distorted internally from men. Like it's just the idea of what success looks like for our community is certainly distorted. But
have you ever noticed that most women who get the platform, they bash men? There's a lot of women out there. Like, I'm starting to see more and more in those snippets. I'm getting to see. Well, you want to get that's what. Yeah, but nobody, again. So you're missing the point. Nobody cares what some woman says on the block, but you put her out there in social media and that stuff goes viral. That's a big deal.
They do care on the block.
No, they don't. I'm tired. People, Chris, the media don't care what we see each other on your block. They can give a rat's butt when we.
I'm not even talking about that. But I'm talking in our community.
But that's what I'm just talking about.
Impacts us.
No, but but you're missing the point. What I'm saying is, if you take that person and put that black woman on TV and she starts bashing men, they want to see that. Yeah. They want to see that. They don't. What y'all do in your community, they don't care. But you put that person out there on TV, you feed the narrative. Because a black woman's going to listen to a black woman talk about how you just talk about somebody's mama, how bad men are.
True.
So they there's a lot of women that won't do that. That stand by and say, I got a good. You don't see them on TV.
I just even think outside of the media part that we kind of focused and talked about, it happens just in conversation, like.
Yeah, but there's nothing and I'm going back to what you said.
Raising boys in that.
The power, they are, but the power of social media reaches far beyond one community and one family. Yes. And the power of social media and distorted images in the media, it feeds fear to people who don't look like us. Hence, you have the racism. Mm-hmm. Hence, it just feeds racism. I totally agree that our boys are getting beat down because the messages inside our community are crazy.
Yes.
That's
part two of being a black man in America.
And they do. And I agree 200%. However, we got a responsibility to break that cycle in the neighborhood. Why are we allowed? I don't live there anymore, but in North Philly, I always complain. You don't go up in the Northeast and see bulletin boards with him on them and vape signs. No, but around in the hood, you see those signs. Buying beer and all that stuff, you see those signs in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. You don't see these Chinese stores moving and selling alcohol in these good neighborhoods. But you see them in the hood.
Yeah,
you see them in the hood. So you take that And then, like to your point, we got parents who don't know any better because we're dealing with a generation right now, and I'm gonna show my age. At 62, I remember 20 years ago being in the room, maybe more than that, having a conversation with people when I was in an organization called Urban Family Council. And you remember, we used to go into the schools, and they were like, "Well, we're not gonna do it anymore." Well, why? Because we feel like it's just a waste of time, waste of money. High school kids don't need that, because it's not getting through to them in upper middle school. So fast forward, whose kids you think we're dealing with right now? The same generation that we weren't going to teach character to, the same generation that we weren't going to teach, to your point, how to abstain and make better decisions, because that's who went on and had kids. So, and that's what history does. That's what history does. People don't know history, doomed to repeat it. Which is why they didn't want black people to learn how to read. It's why they want to keep you enslaved. It's why they want you not associate with each other, to figure out. So so now we do it voluntarily. And that's what we have to do a better job. Both of you hit on the head. We have to take responsibility. I do.
Yes.
All this trying to find somebody to save us and lead us out the muck and mire is crazy. And I'm not in politics, but my plan would be, you start in the community. You start with the church. You start because that's already an established entity. And you work out in your community, not going to Africa, not going. I know somebody will get upset when I say it is not going. You do, and you work your community, and it looks different from everybody, but you work your community. Yes. And you don't say because one kid is ruining stuff, all the kids like that. You don't do it. There's good kids and bad kids in every community, every ethnic group, and it's not going to happen in a week. But if everybody made a concerted effort, say, one, I'm going to start with me. I'm going to be the best version of me. Two, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to take somebody else on this journey with me. And I'm going to challenge my friends to take somebody else on this journey. And that's how you start it. Now, I may not see the results in my lifetime, at least not the final result, but that's how you start a movement. And we got to get back to it. We started to move with the rap culture. Everybody went,
And now look at that culture.
But don't even mean what it's supposed to be. It was a voice. It was black people's voice. The same product stuff. Yeah. So we got to do better. And I'm not debating that, but we also got to recognize that there's systemic racism out there that we got to deal with every day too. Yeah. And it's not going to go away because we sit around in the barbershop and talk about it. I can sit in the barbershop and talk to my boys all day long about how bad the local school is, and then I don't vote. Well, I go vote for somebody that come kiss a baby every 4 years, and I don't see him again for 4 years. So, I'm gonna put a pot roast in everybody's pot, and I'm gonna put a car in everybody's garage, and everybody, you can't even drive. So as black men, we have to understand that we are the gatekeepers. As black men, we gotta understand, man, that we should be. I think you said it, Devin. We should be protectors. I say this all the time, and I got to get my Bible moment in. The Bible says, and you're talking about Adam. If you told Adam was supposed to have dominion, in the garden, man was supposed to have dominion. Dominion does not mean you're just in charge of it. It also means responsibility. You're responsible for it. Black men have to be, you shouldn't have 5 families in 5 different places. You're right, Devin. We're responsible for that. I told you when I'm watching the special, when they talking about changing some of the laws. No, teach your kids not to break the law. Don't change the law because you want to. No, let's teach them not to break the law. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, we're going to change the law because people die sensitive with trivial laws. Yeah, but it's the law. Teach them not to break it. Then you go change the law. Don't change the law because you're not teaching them anything. What you're teaching them is, this is illegal, but I'm gonna keep challenging because they'll keep changing it. No, and we gotta, and I think Chris used the word. We gotta have great expectations for ourselves. Yeah, I don't care what anybody's expectations are for me. I got them for myself. I have them for you.
Yeah, I did want to kind of get to a couple of comments. Mr. Gary said the image of black man is extremely distorted in America. Yes, it is, and certainly just kind of echoing my dad's sentiments here. Like, we are responsible for it. Like, I think it does have to start somewhere. Certainly starts with us kind of taking ownership of like what it means and not allowing people to kind of put some of those images on us. But I can't ignore that it's definitely a group of us that they fall into some of these negative images that we have, and they pushing it and they singing it proudly. And they are, but and that gets put up to the forefront, which in terms other outside people kind of have that image and perception of us.
Because let's say this though, I have seen more and more every day on social media of there are black men doing what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
You see them in suits.
But that's my point. But
Mhm.
they don't get any play. You don't see people out there like when I go into the center or the rehab center or shelter working with them, or when I'm in the high school working with these kids and they're doing, nobody's in there filming that.
So, question for
Nobody's
that,
talking about that. But if I was in and the riot started, every news station be covering it.
I think the actually kind of interesting question to me here is like, why are our people not sharing these things or talking about these things? But we constantly see our people
In my humble
sharing the
opinion,
negative things that we do and making it where it's like, man, this is the majority of us.
three quick points in my humble opinion. The first one, because a lot of us got that crab in the barrel mentality. You know, I'm not even trying to make it, but Chris trying to make it, that ain't happening. You know, I got a problem with Chris now. Who he think he is? He acting white. He's selling out.
You know what's crazy? I'm about to call myself out here. I'm hating on Russell Wilson.
I'm just saying.
He's a good guy.
No, but
he's a good guy. But I'm hating on him, calling him corny and all this.
I think
take it back.
I think the second thing is because we've forgotten how to have goals, man. We forgot how to set goals and have a vision for ourselves. You know, we let people give them to us. Mm-hmm. This is what you should be because you live in this era and you can't do this. You can't, you got to make it to the game, man. You got to make it to the league. That's it. So we do that. Mm-hmm. So again, like I said, we got to do better, man. And then the third thing, I think the third reason, which is maybe some of the biggest reason, is we worry about what each other think. We worry about what somebody think, man. If you're doing the right thing and you grinding whatever you're doing to bust your butt to go forward, why you worry about somebody that's sitting over there doing nothing? And we do. Yeah. All the time when I'm talking to people, well, I did it because she did it. Or what about it? What they gonna think about me? Who cares? Yo, my father said, dude, my father used to tell me all the time, man, they not paying your bills and I put food on your table, they ain't kicking your butt. Who cares?
At the same time, you still want to be accepted by your people.
No, you don't say I don't want to be accepted.
I get what you mean, but
we're taking the approach of a child growing up in high school.
But you got to teach people. Well, let me ask you a question. Why are there young children who make it? Why are there young children who grow up in some adverse situations, but they make it? Because their parents teach them. And so it's not just about being a child; it's how you teach them and prepare them. So if you're not teaching your child that, they're going to be more susceptible.
I mean, that's I don't know, but then we can be on the other side of that though too.
Okay, I may want to be accepted by somebody like Gary and Wayne because I know they don't. I don't want to be accepted by no knucklehead. I can care less.
But I think what's funny, you just kind of called out the point of like these kids are saying like, oh well, I did it because so and so did it, or I wanted
because we're not raised because the way we're raising them. My point was the way we're raising them. We're teaching this generation to be generation of followers. That's the problem. But to say that they can't make a decision because they can't, that's not true. There's a lot of kids with the right information making good decisions.
Just again, thinking from I'm probably far removed from high school and being there now, but
yeah, you are far.
But still, I still remember like just the idea
what you remember
of peer pressure. No, it's still very much I think
different,
heightened and even crazier now.
That's what I said. It's not the same.
Yeah,
it's different.
It's a lot worse probably.
Because if you did something on the 5th floor back then, it took a week to get around the school. You was on the 5th floor now. Before you get to the 6th floor, they know.
Instagram or TikTok.
It was a brawl outside of charter school, Franklin Charter School in Brownsburg. Mm-hmm. And all these kids, some kids would run about nowhere kicking this kid like they were kicking a football.
Heard about
that. Jumping in for no reason at all. I guarantee you all they know that kid. Just jumping in, winding up kicking. That's the problem. And you know what? When I'm looking at the faces, someone knew that's my son. That's my son. That's my daughter. So the point I'm making is if you raise somebody a certain way, of course. But if you got to start teaching them, and there's exceptions everywhere. You can do the right thing and sometimes your kids just a butthead. But in most cases, if you plant the seeds, even if they forget it, they come back. But we're not even teaching our kids that. Black men have to do a better job at least trying to pass it on. And not just to their kids. You got nephews. You got, like, I don't have to go into the school. I enjoy it. And sometimes it's kind of irritating because sometimes you'll say stuff to them and they'll say some dumb stuff back to you. But most of the time, I get something like, they're getting this. They're starting to think about what I'm saying. And they don't all have dads, or they got dads that's not engaged, or dads not involved, or somebody never know they dad. So it's about, we have to collectively do better. I was talking to somebody today. I'm writing my book. My book is going to be on Stokely Schoolyard. Remember we were talking about it when we showed up, and Stokely Schoolyard is this place I grew up at. And the one thing about Stokely Schoolyard was we were a community. We looked out for each other, man. Our parents looked out for each other's kids. It was a real community. You know, my mom was a teacher, and she was coming home, and the biggest thug in the neighborhood would carry her groceries and not steal it because they knew us. Oh, Chris, man, I had your mom. Your mom was myself today. You know, we were chill today. You know, I mean, so it was different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was different.
But now your teacher recording you, putting you online.
But also because it was a sensitive community, and I know things have changed now. You can't be hitting, grabbing up somebody's kid, but we can share information. We can share information. Like I was talking to Pastor Alonzo Johnson, Pastor Believers Bible Fellowship. We were talking about it. Like I would love to go into a school with a bunch of men. I would love to go into school with a bunch of men, man, for a day. You know, a bunch of men, man, just walk the hallways. You know, or maybe going on a Saturday, go like on a Friday, walk the hallways, come back on a Saturday, have some kind of gathering in the auditorium and have the kids, have some young boys do community service and matching up with the men. I would love to do that. Now, we're not going to get all of them, but you'll get some. And if you get one, you're changing the generation because now they're going to raise their kids differently. That's what black men used to do. When I used to go to barbershop, when I used to take you to the barbershop, it wasn't all these crazy conversations people having now.
Yeah.
It was conversations about community. It was conversations about how do we come together. They talked about politics. Now everybody talking about bootylicious and all.
And, I mean, but I think again, that just kind of goes to the point of I think it's been kind of maybe enough generations of where we moved from the idea of us having that community to more. It was like, wow, black men doing this, black men not doing this, black men. You know what I mean? It wasn't. I feel like it's probably more praise for black men during that time. Like, oh, like, you know, you were more revered at that time and looked at
within the community. Right?
Yes,
but not publicly, within the community.
Yes, within the community. Like, black men were revered and looked at as like, just even thinking about Grandpa and how people looked at him as just kind of this big figure in his neighborhood beyond your family.
But if you feed people.
But then now you be bashing old people back then and be like, oh, well, he probably beat. That's the crazy part too. They'll bash an old man now, like from back then, like, well, he probably beat his wife for like
he toxic.
Yeah, like, oh, she accepted his state because she had to.
No,
like,
because they've been fed that information, they've been fed misinformation. They take it and run with it. That's their problem. And their moms, people influencing their wife, didn't get them the right information. Everybody can get information from somewhere. That's just that we humans. That's the fact of life.
Yeah.
And if you don't give your kids the right information, they're going to get information from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. Just because you have the title parent doesn't mean you're the leader of your child. Whoever has the influence over your child is a leader. Just because you parent don't mean it's you. And that's the problem. You know, because the first time any one of my kids start talking that nonsense, I'm gonna correct them.
Yeah.
You know, no, you ain't gonna want to talk about that because you don't know them all. You know, just because something happened to you when you were 12 years old, it don't mean that's every man.
And then I think it's been just too many generations and years of people just kind of passing along or passing down trauma
and misinformation.
Trauma and misinformation. And then like just kind of or anecdotal experiences that they had in a little pocket somewhere, and then they just really believe in like now that's the all because of the little bit of experience that I've had.
And Gary just touched on what we said. He's saying, you know, many of our children not being raised up properly have no positive role models. And that's when I'm in schools talking to some of these kids, I'm an anomaly, man. Their dads ain't involved. Or their dads, you know, some of their biggest cheerleaders and the crazy stuff they do. You know, I'm married 39 years. They ain't never heard no nonsense like that, man. And I say nonsense to them, that is. You know, that's group of boys group before last. We were in the high school talking, and you know, and it's kind of funny because I hear the same excuses. Man, I ain't getting married, man. You know, Devin and I were talking about it. You know, Devin said he didn't know they still see cheddar and cheese. You know, yeah, man. So you don't have no cheddar and cheese. You broke it and broke. What are you talking about? But they done heard this stuff has been passed down. Yeah. Well, she only after my stuff. What stuff?
My sneakers.
Yeah. So we pass information down. We pass information down, and it becomes rule and law and thumb, and it's this misinformation that we just pass down and down and down.
Yeah.
So you get women who I don't trust men. You know, I do the couples counseling. Well, your mama ain't date all men. Did you ever think that maybe your mama did something to kind of create that circumstance, or she contributed to the toxic situation? So it's not all men. It takes two people to be in a toxic relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I say that because you know that's the information that's being passed down. That, and to your point, you know, there's too much time on social media because you know social media is influencing these kids. So why are you allowing? And statistic after statistic, study after study talks about how television and music, the media in general shapes our young people. But guess what? They don't mind putting that crap in our neighborhoods because we let our kids watch it. Because we think it's cute. We think it's cute when our kid can do all the latest dances, man. She can get up there. Like I was in the school the other day and I'm watching these kids and they going back doing the Dougie, they doing the name, all these dances, right? So I said, yo, how many of them got straight A's? They just looked at me.
Excuse me?
How many of them got B's? They just looked at me. How many of y'all got C's? Some D's.
What dance is that?
Yeah, but that's my point. And these are parents who put emphasis on the wrong thing. And this is where black men got to step up and say, yo, I don't need my daughter to do every dance. I need to know how to read and write.
Yeah,
that's a bonus if she can.
Definitely.
I don't need my son to be walking around here trying to figure out what it means to be, a gangster. I need to learn how to be a gentleman, how to be a man.
I think, again, prior to the point that I made, where it's just been kind of like generations of like just kind of bad habits or things passed down. Like there's black men who kind of fall into some of these categories of not being. I don't want to not acknowledge that and act like it's just, oh yeah, because I know a good circle of black men that we all good black men. Like it's definitely, but it's like that with people.
On both sides of the track.
Yes, people. Period. That's always.
But this goes back to my earlier issue. Except when it's us, it's more publicized.
Yeah, I mean, because we do some of the crab in the barrel.
No, but
stuff
you
to ourselves.
say the same thing. Is like, for instance, you ever notice if it's a
ain't number.
I can tell your mom when it was like a mass shooting or something crazy happened, what ethnicity the person is. Because when they're black, they show you the picture right away. They don't hesitate. When they white, it take them a week sometimes to put the picture up. When they don't, it's like yeah. And I remember Allen Iverson said that when he got arrested one time, and he said, "Yo, all the pictures you got of me as a basketball player." You took the worst picture you could, and that's what you put on the back page, on the front page of the newspaper. That's on purpose.
The images that they put of us out there.
But that's my point. That's what I'm saying. We have to be careful about what the media and the numbers and the stuff they put out that we take in. But I got to be very careful with it.
Again, from a broader perspective, like again, with our conversation about the image of black men, is I think it's a number of things that are against us at the moment that kind of put this image or portrayal of us out there.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that really is kind of, in terms of what it means being a black man in America, it's hard.
But my comeback to that is, treat me as an individual. Don't treat me as a whole ethnic group.
And that's kind of crazy.
Treat me as an individual. Get to know me before you start casting out all these things and what you think,
all that,
or what you think I am. And do, because, I can sit down and talk sports and be silly and goofy, but I can flip the hat around like I flip the hat around. And I've been in both rooms and I had to sit down and articulate myself very well. I had to sit there and get a contract, had to go back and forth, and I've been in rooms where we would just yuck it up and everybody acting silly. So I can do all that. And I'm not saying it's in a braggadocious way. I can do it better than some white people I know. But the problem is they're judging me soon. And to your point, we some of the worst ones.
Yeah.
We some of the worst ones that we judge each other soon we walk in the door instead of say, well, let's figure out what's the common ground. I'm your competition soon I get there. So we are some of the worst ones. But the cycle has to be broken somewhere.
Yeah.
Right now we're going further and further and further and further away from the needle. Further and further and further away. Voter rights are being taken away and we're doing nothing, man. We sitting here, like I said, they're arguing about $1 billion stadium downtown, and half our schools dilapidated and falling down. Don't have air conditioning. Still dealing with asbestos. Still dealing with that paint. It's great. Teachers are still. I was talking to some teachers the other day that they spend a couple $1,000s a year on supplies for their kids. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That you got to spend out your pocket. So that's my point. So when I hear people, and people got to be held accountable. Let me back up. So when I hear people say this, no, it starts locally. Or I used to go to SRC meetings from the school district, and you go down there, and we in there arguing because they're closing the school and my kid's not going to have a prom. The school, it was one school, Chris, that was failing for 10 years. First of all, it's a travesty that you let the school stay open for 10 years.
They shouldn't even go to prom.
When all she knows, and then, wow, my daughter got to catch a school bus, so she got to get up early and catch a bus. Your daughter's not going to be properly educated. That's what you should have been talking about. So that's what I'm saying. So this is where I think, and I'm not negating black women. So please, if you're out there, I just think there's a role, and we have roles.
Yeah.
And I think based on what I believe, I think men who are in the household should be head of household. I'm not saying they should be the boss or thing. And with head of household or having the main, however you want to put it, comes a responsibility that you take care of those, you look out for those, you protect those who are assigned to you.
Yeah.
Who are under your care, under your tutelage. And it goes deeper than that, because if you bring somebody else that's assigned to you, then they're assigned to me.
Sounds like you want a family.
No, because they're hanging around. If they're hanging around you, then I need to worry about that person if it's hanging around.
I get that.
I need to pour in him because bad company corrupts. That's true.
I feel like we got a question about gentlemen. What is it going to take for us to wake up for real? I think it's going to take a combination of things. Certainly, I feel like what you touched upon in terms of like men stepping up and being in the schools and just kind of being around. But I do also think it's going to take our women and ladies as well. I think it's kind of the point that was made before. A community is all of us. And I think we both play an important part of the image of the black man, as well as just our community in general. I think we're responsible for each other.
I'm gonna slightly disagree. I think women should get involved, but I think if you go back to the blueprint of civil rights movement, Dr. Martin Luther King, I think it starts with a bunch of strong men. I think if every church said we're going to get our men together, if every synagogue said we're going to put minorities in the synagogue, we can put our differences down with the Muslim brothers. I spoke in Delaware a couple of years ago, and there's some Muslim brothers in the room, and they said the same thing I said. If we can just put our differences aside and stand for our communities, you will see change. But we so busy fighting over each other, fighting over stuff that our communities falling. The very thing we're fighting for is falling down around us. So I think if you want to take over anything, you start with the men. If you put the men in slavery, you can then take over the rest of the country because it's easier. So you start with men in everything. But I think that doesn't change. I still feel I'm not saying everybody. I don't say we need them, but your initial stance should be all the brothers should take their right, because that's what's going to get everybody's attention. Mm-hmm. Because they're used to black women doing stuff. Be honest, black women do a lot of stuff for us. They're used to black women being the teachers and serving in church they're not used to us being there. So the minute we show up, we're going to get attention. It's no different when white people pay attention because there's 5 black guys on the gather on the corner. They get their attention. They get their attention. I see 5 white guys. They up to no good. No, see now we just kind of getting off the path. But if you get a group of us together, people always automatically assume something is wrong. So when you start getting together to do positive stuff,
even the example of Martin Luther King, there's prominent women that were right there in the mix.
But they weren't in the front. This thing was started. I didn't say we don't need women. I didn't say we don't need women, but you need a bunch of brothers to stand up first to get their attention. If you just start saying, that's who gets the attention. That's who makes people pay notice. The FBI, the CIA, all of them started paying notice because you had these brothers out there doing this stuff.
I don't think they like to see us together.
They don't, but I agree with you 200%. But it starts with the brothers. And just like you need white people to make this work too. It's not us against them, but brothers as a whole first need to take the first step and come outside our churches and stop saying because I go to Enon and you go to Deliverance or you go to Bethel that we can't come together. That nonsense got to stop. Or I can't talk to you because you're a different denomination. That is, and my grandma called them demon nations because there's no denominations in the Bible. That nonsense has to stop. We got to be able to put our petty differences aside, and say, okay, we're fighting for the next generation.
I think we need more positive programming. And I feel like that was the great thing about, not his personal life, but that was a great thing about like the Cosby Show, where like hanging with Mr. Cooper, you got to see, a black man being a doctor, Uncle Phil being a lawyer, and really being there for not just their children but the community as a whole.
But you gotta see it though, and people still need to see that in person. I agree with you, and this goes back to what Chris said. We don't control that, so that's why you don't see it. We don't control it. That's why you don't see anybody rushing to remake those shows. Now, they making all other shows getting remade.
But they made it
more dramatic.
Right, more drama.
But you don't see people out there rushing. So that's my point. I think, and I'm not putting saying that we should be above or anything. Black men need to step up and take their rightful place, man, and be the leaders in their homes, man. Be the husbands they're supposed to be the fathers they're supposed to be. Like you said about those TV characters, be involved in your community, and it's a different level for everybody. I remember my dad, God rest his soul. My dad was like, yo, we sit down and eat, take this pot down the street to so-and-so. There was somebody knocked on my door when he knew it was dinner time. We weren't best friends, but he knew it was dinner time. He knew my dad was going from something to eat. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying we got to get back to those days, man. And men women definitely need it. I'm not saying that. Young people definitely need it. But men, millennials, Gen X, everybody to get together and say, look, hey, this is what we want to do. This is where we're going to make our stand. I'm not going to be upset because Devin wore a hoodie and a pair of jeans to church. So that can't be the dividing point among us. Or because he likes dreads or whatever, that can no longer be the dividing point among us.
Yeah.
The dividing point, we got to say, look, this is about the next generation, man, and we're literally dying. Black folk literally dying, man, because we're dropping the ball.
Yeah, and I think kind of just summing things up, it's like I think Mr. Gary said here, it's distorted view of us here in America, and there's so many things I feel like we need to get together.
Yeah,
that we gotta work.
And I'm working on it, and that's my goal is to put as many positive images out there as I can.
I mean, that's why we doing this, like to have those conversations and like just positive programming. To your point, like talking about what we think a great deal of the issues are in our community, and hopefully mentioning or saying things that may drive some ideas in like actual action.
We're getting past the time. So
we're way past the time.
Gary and Wayne, man, what I'm looking for, we hope for next week to maybe turn this into a panel discussion. So we have, I don't know if you're going to do in person or Zoom.
I don't know.
But we're going to try to, I would like to have, I appreciate you guys putting the questions in there, but I think people like to hear your voices. So I don't know, maybe we'll do a Zoom link or something. I'll finally figure out how to send the Podbean link out. But we definitely want to do this and get more people involved, because I think this is going to be our theme for the month, is Black History Month.
Of course.
That we go through this, man. And hopefully, we can wake some folk up, Gary, to your point, man. We can wake some folk up and let them know, man, that, you weren't created to be a mess. Mediocrity is not something that we should be settling for, man, for us or for our kids. But I also want to say, my problem with the show on MSNBC was they kept talking about the promises of Black men and nothing about the community. And I that part kind of troubled me, because once again, I think you said it, Chris. I think you both said it. It's another mechanism to separate us.
To your point, you said the Black men got to step up in order to really get the community going.
Yeah, but that's not getting your promises. Your promises should. And we did a whole show about, when you weren't here. Devin and I did a show about vision. Your vision should not just be for you. It should benefit others.
We weren't taught that.
It should benefit others. Now we did a whole show on that when Devin and I was here, man. So that has to be, especially if you're talking about you want to be a leader. But anyway,
that's a whole nother point I was going to be on. Like, people are sheep, but hey, we'll save that one for later.
Welcome to another great episode of Ball Average Black Men. For those of you listening on Podbean, we appreciate it. You can catch us on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, TikTok. We love to have you join us on Facebook. That's where a lot of our stuff comes from. And YouTube, you put the quotes in there. And on Instagram, we see a lot of things on Instagram. Maybe Devin share a few of them real quick. But definitely, Devin says this every week. I want to echo those sentiments. If you have some ideas, some topics, we love to have you on, man.
And just to help us make this grow, if anybody out there wants to edit for us, let's chop down some of these things, and I think that'll help us grow as well. Like, reach out to us, send them our way. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening. Another great episode. Make sure you are out there as an above average Black man, empowered, inspired, and uplift the community. I think we always push that living in mediocrity. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Let me get there. Wish I could see some of them comments on Podbean. Y'all can call in though.